If I need to send you right now $100, I go to Zelle or whatever app and I send you $100 and you get it. Now, if I go to my doctor and I was attended in hospital A in Montana and I moved to Florida and I want to share with my doctors here in Florida my clinical record from Montana, I cannot do that. So it's not the lack of capabilities from the technology perspective. It's a lot of willingness from the current regulations that are behind that. We don't own our data. If you're not paying for the product, it's because you are the product.
We are talking about something that has to do with really what AI is. Everyone keeps saying innovation and you can do this and you can, conceive that, but none of that matters unless you're able to commercialize it and unless you're able to make it successful and scalable and viable. So for that reason, we have my very good friend, Bernardo Perez-Villa, who is literally a person that specializes, if there's such a thing, in innovation and commercialization. He was an innovation fellow at Cleveland Clinic and now is Cleveland Clinic's senior innovations partner in the Department of Innovation. So for us to learn everything that has to do with a lot of the hype, but really the reality of what can be done and how to do it, we have Bernardo. Thank you so much for being here, and I'm excited to have you.
No, I'm so thrilled to be here. Amazing opportunity. And first of all, congratulations on all that you do for the community, trying to reduce the hype, bring in validation, and happy to be here and talk more about the reality and bring a little bit of reality to the hype of AI as well.
Yes, I think like the hype is 2023 and now we're in 2025. We have a lot of things that need to happen. We know what is possible. And now there's this almost anxiety about making sure we're leveraging and utilizing the technological advancements and the things that we understand and do better to actually solve these problems that we know have been present in healthcare for a long time. And I guess on that same note, I would love to know, like, what made you realize years back, it seems, because you did you're a fellow in innovation. What made you kind of get into that and excited and also recognize the importance of innovation and commercializing it?
Yep. So as a matter of fact, I had two innovation fellowships. The first one, it was when I was in Spain. It was an innovation fellowship from EIT Health. It is the biggest conglomerate in Europe. And that fellowship was based on the biodesign program of Stanford. I didn't do it in Stanford, but we follow the same methodologies. What is the problem that you want to solve, validate it, and then create the solution? And that's where I have the aha moment and I say, I want to do this, because most of the time people start saying, I have this hammer. And who asked you that we need a hammer? I mean, good, nice hammer, but what are you going to do with it? Well, I'm going to nail everything that I see. Yeah, but who is going to pay you for that? So the biodesign framework that I learned with that fellowship, it was like those one-at-a-time moments. And then when I joined Cleveland Clinic and I saw the innovation fellowship, it's a little bit different, that innovation fellowship, because was a project manager program where I was assigned technologies and they say, here we have the hammer, now you need to go and commercialize it. And I say, but okay, let me do my due diligence with this. And we do the due diligence for a lot of things. We learn how to do it. And we didn't find a lot of market fit. And that's where I learned the word market fit. And I put those two innovation fellowships together. And I say, now I know that the first thing that we need to do is to identify the problem and then create a solution. And the people were telling me, but can I start with a solution? And say, yes, but guess what is going to be the next question? What problem are you trying to solve? So if you start by the problem first, you will save a lot of time. And with AI, I think that you were mentioning 2023 was the hype, and I would like to learn a little bit more from your perspective. Do you think that we are still living out this FOMO activity that a lot of people are with this fear of missing out and trying to create a lot of solutions that they have AI to solve a problem? What are your thoughts on that?
No, I think you nailed it. I mean, I try to do advising and consulting for passionate people and startups that are trying to that potentially could bring solutions and betterment to the world. But I'd noticed an increasing number where exactly what you're saying is the case. I have this thing that can do this thing. Help me make it fit. So they might have a square peg, but it's kind of like a triangle, and they may not realize that the healthcare system is a triangle. You would think it's a square, but you're forgetting one very important corner or piece that either precludes the fit or doesn't allow its viability, or it has some kind of major impediment. So like the solution is great. One example was something I heard last week where this individual is trying to do a step above mammograms, and you can actually get the testing from like nipple fluid. And it's very science-based, and everything is there as far as the science goes, because the solution is, how do we find cancers that mammograms are missing? But the problem is, how is it equitable? Who's paying for it?
Yeah.
What is the data show that like I will pay for this test that's actually looking at a very scientific study on certain proteins and things that come from cancers because they're ductal cancers. It all makes sense. But then the problem is not just that we're missing it, but again, how do you make it equitable? How does the finances fit? Who's the payer? How do you justify it? How much are you missing? And that's where I was like, oh, like I love what you're doing, but again, you need to recognize the problem first, right? And that's not even an AI example. I've seen many of those in AI, and the problem is now you have people that are just starting the startups or companies because somebody else is in that same, space, and there aren't many. So they're looking at the, TAM or the total market, available market. But even that hasn't been tested or identified a problem yet. So it makes me sympathize, but it's something that needs to be fixed as well, which is why I thought it was so perfect when I met you at the Florida Oncology Society Flasco panel that we were on. I was like, you're doing that. You're making sure that the efforts and the passion and the will to do something good, but also monetize on it, actually hits the nail, because there is one.
Yeah, no, and it's very difficult. I was talking the other day with a colleague, and because both are in kind of the same role, and we had that feeling that people believe that we don't want to help. For example, the example that you were giving with this startup, very cool, but no, it's thanks, but no thanks, right? And it's very difficult to be saying no 85 or 90% of the time, because it seems that we don't want to help. We really want to help, but we also are in perhaps the most risk-averse industry of all, that is healthcare, rightly, because if we do something wrong, guess what? A life is gone. And if you do a A/B test with like ChatGPT is doing that, which answer you like, A or B? I like this answer. I like this answer. Okay. The unintended consequences of that are not as bad as in healthcare. But we need to realize that you, with your consulting, my role, we really want to help people. Because we know that I do this because I know that someday I'm going to use healthcare. And I want to have that test that you were mentioning, instead of going to the hospital and driving 30 minutes, paying $20 for the parking, just mail it to me and I'll do it home.
So when you're assessing this, I would love to know if we could tease it out more. You're a man that receives a lot of ideas, a lot of napkin ideas, and you're the assessor of whether this can be incubated or not. So when it comes to ideas, what is probably the number one reason most startups or ideas fail or are not viable?
Lack of unmet clinical need and lack of product market fit. It is really a problem. And most of the people are trying to solve a problem that it is a problem that is already being solved for many other solutions. And so it's very difficult to just give the first reason, but when you look, a lot of report is lack of unmet clinical need or lack of problem, that existing problem. You believe there is a problem. Okay, you believe there is a problem. How you have validated that that's a problem for other people? Right? Because when we have that bias that we believe there is a problem, but we're just one, it's an N of one. You need to have, and you need to have you need to have, I don't know how many people. I always tell people when we move this forward, focus on your first 10 customers. No, but if we penetrate 5% of this market, and I say, I don't care. I think I told you the example that I always give to people is, you have lemons, cool, fantastic. You do the research, development, you transform those lemonades into lemonade. Amazing. Wow. Now you have lemonade. Okay, who is giving you $1 for your lemonade? Oh, no one. So you don't have a business. You have beautiful, tasty, fresh lemonade, but you don't have a business. You have lemonade. And if you want to do a business, you need to find the first 10 people that are going to give you $1. Once that you have your 10 people that gave you $1, collect feedback, improve it. Who can give you $2? Or maybe you need 20 more people that give you $1. And then you keep scaling. So unmet clinical need, lack of an unmet clinical need of a problem, validated problem, is the first cause that we close that. Because especially in healthcare, as I said with Cleveland Clinic, is patient first. If we are not solving a problem, you're not going to make money out of that.
So if somebody wants to, somebody understands AI well or technology well, and somebody wants to find a solution or an unmet clinical need, what does one do to be able to responsibly interrogate, vet, or ensure that a problem exists for which their possible solution is applicable?
Okay, the first thing, there are two things that you can do. The first one is primary market research and secondary market research. Primary market research is go and talk to people. But the people, I don't know if people have read, or you have read the Mom Test. Have you read that book? Read that book. It's incredible because let's say that you draw something you are creating something and you go to your mom. What does your mom say? Oh, this is beautiful. It's lovely. I really like it. And you say, okay, mom, give me $1 for this. Can you buy it? Yes, for sure. Here you have $1. And it's your mom. So you need to go and talk to other people and don't tell them the solution. Say, for example, let's use an example that I validated with Cleveland Clinic. There was this technology that we said, no, there is no market for this, impossible. And we did a primary market research because I said this technology can be used outside Cleveland Clinic. I mean, in rural hospitals, less trained cardiologists. And we went and we talked to the cardiologists, and those cardiologists, we didn't say we have this solution. We say, how many times do you face this problem with this specific pathology? 3-5 times per week. And what do you do when you face that pathology? Well, I try to treat it, but 80% of the time I cannot do anything, and I refer them to another hospital. What would you do if you have a solution for that? Well, obviously I will try to do it myself. And what will that solution be if you have a magic wand? This solution is going to be like that. Bingo. And then when you start repeating that and you see 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people telling you the same message, you have something.
I see.
That is the primary market research. You go and talk to people, but don't tell them about the solution. That's the Mom Test.
Oh my goodness. It sounds so simple, but yeah, you're vetting the problem. You're validating the problem exists, and you're vetting your solution not to see does the square peg fit in the triangle hole. You want them to tell you that it's a triangle hole, and then you already have the triangle and you know it will fit. So that's primary, and then that's amazing. And then what is the secondary process?
You just go to ChatGPT and start asking with Consensus or PubMed or whatever, and try to find if there are publications about this problem, right? And yes, for example, with this specific case I was telling you, it was overwhelming that if we were treating bifurcation artery lesions in coronary arteries, you have 2 coronary arteries and they bifurcate, and it's very difficult to treat them. So, fun fact, when I was looking into the literature on that, you see Congress after Congress that they always talking about the same. Everyone is doing their own solution. There is not consensus or very strict standard of care. Yes, when you're at Cleveland Clinic in a center that they do 10 of these cases per day, and you talk to that doctor says, oh yeah, this is a piece of cake. You're doing it 10 times per week. If you go to someone that never does it, they will say, no, I'm not scared. I'm just trying to do whatever I can and then send the patient to you. So that's the secondary, looking into literature. But one thing that I know that it's not going to sound very scientific, but it is very useful. I look into Reddit and Twitter. Well, X now.
And that's because they're kind of your primary assessment. They're real people.
And ChatGPT now is very good to put there. If you say, for example, I was looking into make it clinical data portable, accessible, shareable in an easy and secure way. And I went into Reddit, and we found 6,000 people saying that it was a problem for them not being able to share clinical data with their physician in an easy manner.
Oh,
6,000. Imagine now that you go to those 6,000 people and you say, hey, I saw that you say that this is a problem. Can I talk to you for a second?
oh, wow.
Reddit is Reddit and X and another very good source is Google Words or Google Search. When you go and you filter how many times people start looking for something. For example, how many times people, when you go to the flu season, I don't know if you knew that Google tried to create this algorithm because when you're getting close to flu season, people start looking for headache, I don't know, fever or sneeze or blah, blah, blah. So you start looking into symptoms because now Google or searches or ChatGPT, this is when people are really honest. When we're doctors, we know that when people come to us and you say, do you have chest pain? No. What is that? I don't know. And the wife of the patient that is coming or the spouse says, he had chest pain yesterday. He's lying. Oh, yeah. And I'm pretty sure that if you go to the Google search of that person, you will find, what do I do when I have chest pain?
Oh, my goodness. That's so true.
Yeah. Have you read the
I
book,
love that. So,
Everyone Lies? That's
Yeah.
a book that you need to read. It's there.
so the mom test and everyone lies. Got it. So that is very helpful. It sounds simple, but my goodness, I'm sure people are a little not horrified, but just like, oh, I really should have done that first. So that's very helpful. The second question I have is when it comes to startups, even historically, one of the biggest places that startups stall is revenue. And obviously that's a big issue. But when it comes to AI and tech, especially if anyone is, investing in tech stocks and AI stuff, that reality seems a lot larger because a lot of the actual revenue to justify the upside, to offset the cost, it just isn't there. And so you're actually having, as far as a valuation metric goes or assessment, a D or an F because you're having to spend so much money. What is either the problem or the concern that you have with this, or what is the fix for this solution that, again, historically you have a revenue problem, and in these cases the spend is far greater and on a basically promise that eventually this should correct itself.
A lot to unpack there, but in short, the healthcare system in the U.S. is a fee-for-service healthcare system. So far, the majority, right? Value-based care and all these things that they're trying to take off, but it's taking longer. And technology goes to the speed of light, and the regulation goes to the torch of the speed. I don't know. So how do you match that in a way that, again, we need to be safe. We need to protect the security of our patients, the data. We need to do all the regulations. We need to be regulated. No one denies that. And how do we do that in a way that we can at least go at the same speed, right? And in the regulation. But the regulation also is coming in a fee-for-service healthcare system when if you are not reimbursed, you are not going to be you're never going to be profitable, right? And what does it mean reimbursed? People say, oh, I need a CPT code. Okay, but that CPT code, reimbursement has three phases. It has CPT code, that is coding, coverage, and payment. Okay, imagine that we created technology AI that has a CPT code. Cool. Now, it's coverage by the insurance. Fantastic. Payment. Imagine that they pay you $20 every time that you use that technology, but for you as a startup, the cost of producing that is $20.
Not even.
No, you're losing. So what do? You try to reduce costs. You try to reduce it's the impossible triangle. You have cost, quality, and time. You just can't pick two. if you want quality, it's going to take you time and money. If you want to make things cheaper, you will need to spend, again, a lot of money and perhaps to keep the quality up, right? So it's the impossible triangle. Just try to pick two. And on the startups, most of the time, unfortunately, they don't have that. So that's because, as you were saying, that at the beginning, they are not, it's a risk, it's a bet. And a CPT code takes, I don't know how, it's a maze. You say, well, I finished the FDA maze where I'm FDA clear or whatever. I have 510K, they know whatever you have. And then you need to go to the maze of the CPT code. There is another crazy stuff. So and how do we solve that? I don't know. I don't have a magic bullet into that. I think that once again, if we could make things going at the same pace, maintaining the guardrails of safety, it will be good. But at the end, everything boils down to legislation.
Oh boy. Yeah, I think even the CPT code, I mean, it does generally fall on CMS, but CMS, I believe, contracted with AMA. And so it gets, there's a little, bit of a web on even figuring that out. And
again, look, I'm not an expert in CPT codes. I try to learn it. And you have you have two main options. The first option is you create a new CPT code. And as you say, CMS, MAA, they meet every 90 days. I don't know. Do you need to hire a consultant for that? The same for the FDA. And that's very expensive. It's 50, 100K or whatever. And then with the CPT code, you can find a CPT code that is already being used, and you can say, hey, I am doing sort of the same. Can I use that CPT code for my technology? And they need to approve it. That's cheapest and faster, right? But again, if you get paid $10 and the cost for you to produce it is $20, you need to try the way of reducing your cost until you're $5 and keeping the quality.
So there may not be a clear answer to this, but when you're thinking about biomedical innovation, how do you decide to spin out a startup or perhaps license the technology? Do you have an opinion on either, or is it just, they're both equally viable?
Usually, most of the ventures, they want to, or the technology transfer offices, usually that every case is different, of course, and it's a decision. Everyone has their own Excel sheet with the criteria and committees and blah, blah, blah. But usually for a startup, it has to be a platform, something that is not used only, let's say, okay, you can use it for oncology, but also you can use it for cardiology. And also you can use it for orthopedics. And even if you go further, can we use it in another industry? Right? And you can say, well, not only for human, we can use it in veterinary. Okay, now we're talking. Now this is, I am not going to give you this for, I don't know, I'm just making a number, $100,000 that give me 5% of royalties and another $50,000 in milestone. I'm going to put my money on this. I'm going to bet into that, and let's go. Usually, and that's what ventures capital they do. They want to see a big market, scalability, and something that is a platform. And the rest of things, yes, usually with medical devices, we would have the tendency to license more because it's for a very, then I will say also that for licensing, it's more incremental, right? I know that the term disruptive innovation, people use it indiscriminately, but disruptive innovation from the Clay Christensen perspective, where you say it's a new market, people is targeting people that are not using it, that's a disruptive innovation, and usually you create a startup out of that. The incremental or the sustaining innovations, where is, okay, I have iPhone 16, I'm going to have the iPhone 17, that it has more memory, nicer camera, but I'm going to charge you $200 more than the last year. And like, yeah, why not? That incremental technology is usually licensed.
Gotcha. That is actually very helpful. I appreciate that. So when you're talking about what sounds like probably disruptive innovation, what is one of the biggest myths about this concept of first in class, either drug or device, and the clinical benefit? Is that something that you think of synonymously with disruptive innovation, or is it some kind of misused?
I don't know if you planned this question or what, but I published a paper on that. And I will
I
say,
saw that.
I just did a paper, yes. So, fun fact with first-in-class on all these drugs is it seems that they are incremental. It seems that a lot of drugs nowadays it's incremental because big pharmas and companies it costs a lot of money, right? And for example, if you and I want to develop a new drug, is going to be, I don't know, a couple of $1,000,000 perhaps to try to do the first research, and we know that it's going to take, but that for Pfizer or for very big pharmas, they will say, hey, I'm not going to spend my time on that. You just go and find people in Silicon Valley or Boston that are going to give you money. And then what it's going to do when you start see that the startup that you and I created, then the big companies that start seeing that we are taking market out of them, they will say, hey, what are you doing? Hey, we're taking your market out of you. When did you start doing that? I don't know, like 5, 7 years ago, and I already told you. And they say, okay, I'll buy you. Or because I can't compete against you, it's going to be easier for me to buy you out. Well, the same that happens, for example, with the famous case of Netflix and Blockbuster. The Blockbuster wanted to buy Netflix for X amount of money. Netflix say, buy me for this money, and Blockbuster say, no, we don't want to buy you. And then when they wanted to buy them out, they buy them again, it was impossible. The same happened with Yahoo, and I think it was Google. But most of the big technology, most of the big corporations, they don't care much about disruptive in the sense of saying technologies that the first in class, it's like a kind of a me too of other drugs. So
would you consider NVIDIA with disruptive technology?
At this point, they are sustaining. So when you want to find something that is disruptive, this is disruptive innovation, right? You have the performance of a metric that, as I told you with the iPhone, and then you have the time. If it's a sustaining innovation, is because the performance of the technology you can actually utilize. As I said, you can use the iPhone, but you use only 10% of the capabilities of that. You use Spotify, Google Maps, and so on, but they keep incrementally using. Now, how many times you use your phone for make a phone call compared to sending money? So the phone is not longer a phone. It's more your bank, it's your map, it's your entertainment. So that's a new performance. So the iPhone, when it came out compared to the traditional phones, it was a disruptive innovation. So
I see.
And in order to answer that, there are questions that Clay Christensen and the Institute of Clay Christensen created. Does it target non-consumer or people who are overserved by an incumbent existing offering in the market? So let's wrap up in 1 second. It's very simple. It's does this technology targeting non-consumer, so people that are not using the technology? For example, I don't use my phone for, I don't have Instagram or other social media, but I use it for other things. Non-consumer, you need to find, as I was mentioning to you, those non-consumers. Second, is the offering not as good as an incumbent existing offering as judged by historical measure of performance? As I was telling you, is this new product not as good, but good enough? It's a little bit clunky, but the same is, let's use one example, ChatGPT. It was targeting non-consumers, right? People that you weren't using perhaps Google in a way that you were using it like a companion, but you started using it for a companion, right? It's good? Yeah, it's good. After a few iterations, when ChatGPT came out, it was a little bit clunky, but it was getting better. Is the innovation simpler to use, more convenient, or more affordable than the incumbent existing offering? Again, with the companion, well, if I need to go to therapy or I need to go to a psychiatrist or whatever, yeah, it's more convenient. I mean, I am not going to spend, if I need to ask for an appointment, I need to pay X amount of money. And perhaps I'm okay with that. Does the offering have a technical enabler that can carry it up market and allow to improve? Well, we've seen that ChatGPT has been improving with the time. Is the technology paired with the business model innovation that allows it to be sustainable? And I will let you answer that question. With the same with ChatGPT, what do you think
Yes.
about?
Yeah,
Why?
I mean, it's like it's so accessible. Like everyone has a computer or a phone, and
Yeah.
you can use ChatGPT on a device that you're already using.
Okay, how much is it ChatGPT per month?
$20.
$20. Okay, how sustainable is the subscription model for ChatGPT?
Probably not.
So is it a disruptive innovation?
Is it disruptive, or is it going to be sustainably disruptive?
I don't know. That's we're coming back to that point in 1 second. Are existing providers motivated to ignore the new innovation and are not threatened at the outset? Meaning, is Google saying, no, we don't care about that? Is Meta saying, no, we don't care about that? No, they do care. So it was very disruptive at the beginning, but now it's becoming a little bit, it is never completely disruptive, sustainable, a new market. It's so overlapping and evolving. So if ChatGPT doesn't find a business model that it will keep them making disruptive, they will, and eventually there will be a sustainable technology. It's the normal evolution.
This is incredible. I'm learning so much. So much. And I believe this is what your education course at Cleveland Clinic is. You have like this innovation program where all of these things that just sound so, I mean, I was told, the hallmark of brilliance is when something is said that you've never thought about before, and at the same time feels so like, duh, like that is the ultimate truth. I mean, these are so mind-blowing. And to a similar point or a similar question, my question for you is, what are one or two of your biggest concerns when it comes to AI, at least as it relates to the healthcare industry? Because of this very well-known issue that the cost far exceeds any kind of revenue, if they're even collecting revenue at this point, what are the reasons it would fail, where this ends up being a big implosion? And maybe what are the reasons that it's successful?
Okay, let's think a little bit. So, what are the risks? The risks are it's a lot of people doing Me Too's, trying to do the same or not, creating a bubble that is going to burst, like it happened with the internet bomb. That's a risk.
Let's do clinical trials. Let's just start there, for example. There's so many clinical trial AI companies that say, hey, we can look at your data, we can use our LLMs, we can figure out what the context is, and we can surface, the diagnosis, inclusion criteria. So that's like, it's getting overwhelming how many people are trying to do this.
Yes. When is that going to burst? Not if. When is perhaps. And if there are not, I'm going different places, but if you put the regulation and people say, oh, this is too much, and then they will pivot and they will stop doing it, and a lot of capital is flowing over there, and eventually it's going to explode. It's like happening, as I say, with the internet. People realize there's nothing there. And we just pour money, and then the money stops flowing, and there's a recession, right? That's the fear. However, on the other hand, that's how capitalism works, right? Things need to go up, and eventually, boom, they go down. They go up, and then they go down. So that's a fear. On the other hand, I'm a little more, I'm more optimist. I'm an optimistic in that sense of saying we benefit greatly of AI.
That I know, that I believe. My worry is that it will fail because of how much, computational power that's required. It's a great thing. It offers a great solution.
Yeah.
But when you go back to the viability and how slow the process is on compensation and all these other things, I worry that companies will sink. Like there's an AI for endoscopies now and colonoscopies. They can really identify things that the eyeballs can't. There's so much out there. But the cost is so high with no real return and no answer for the return.
No, you have a really good point there. I'm I'm trying to think like Charlie Munger said, invert, right? Always invert. That's the bad thing. Computational capabilities, sustainability from the business model, as we were talking. Also ecological, because they use a lot of water, they use infrastructure, and so on and so forth. But at the same time, we are living in the best moment in the history of humankind, and people might disagree with me. Cool. Look, I live in Argentina, I live in Spain, I live a little bit in the UK, and now I've been living in the US for 5 years. By far the best place I live. By far. The things that you can do here in the United States, no way I can talk about Argentina, Spain, and the UK. No way that you can do it there. You can't.
In what way? How do you mean? Like just in
mindset.
What is possible?
Mindset. I always say the same. In here in the United States, if I say I want to go to the moon, people ask me how. They don't tell me no.
That's so true. Oh my gosh.
And I say, let's go to the moon. Okay, how? Well, we need to buy the rocket. Okay, do you know how to build it? No. Okay, let's find someone. And if when I was in Argentina, there was we need to go to the moon. Oh, that's very complicated. Can we go to the stars here that are closer? And perhaps, no, dude, the moon's up there. It's a little bit harder, but we need to do the harder things if you want. Well, okay. And is there like a shortcut that we can take? Someone that we can pay for it and then they can take us there? And no, you and I will go. We need to sit our ass there and work it. See that? So that kind, and I'm lucky enough to meet with and work with a lot of leadership at Cleveland Clinic, and they have that mentality of go, Bernardo.
You think that this fact alone will almost will a correction to make the sustainability happen?
Regression to the mean. Is there regression to the mean? It's simple. Now then you have your black swans. Yes, the book that these events that they are World War I, World War II, the 2008 crisis, COVID. Something that I learned. I think I'm getting older, or after reading a lot, is look, I worry about the things that I can control on my own, and things that I cannot control, I try to influence them. And I think that with AI, it's exactly the same. What can I control? How I use it in a secure, responsible manner, patients first, and all these things. Then if I see that I can influence other people to do it in the same way because you and I believe that is good, perfect. But I cannot control what other people are going to be doing.
That's why you and I met on a panel at Flasco. We both said yes, and that's why we're both on this podcast right now. It says we're just doing what we can to influence, to try and get that assurability, which we know has benefit in dire healthcare, deficits and things that we wish could be done better. We know that AI can actually address and fix a lot of those and democratize and the inequity, but we're trying to influence the viability of that. That's beautifully said. This is why I just knew I had to have you, because every time we talk, you give me you have this beautiful way of tying emotion and reason together into action. And I think that's in one way, a definition of innovation. Oh, it's so beautiful. So with that said, I think we briefly talked in Florida after our panel about, this digital age, digital transformation, wearables, etc. What are some of the things that we can do or need to do to ensure that the digital health tools are interoperable and scalable? Because interoperability is starting to become a real issue for highly costly solutions that just don't work everywhere, thereby causing inequity again in a different way.
So why, let me ask you this, why things cannot be integrated, or why interoperability is a problem? What are the 3, 4, 5 factors that make interoperability so complicated?
I think
let's brainstorm.
We matured into having these independent verticals propped up to begin with. It was never a socialized manner or system, and therefore You have private, you have academic, you have, regional, you have different EMRs. I mean, really just because it's capitalistic industry, I think.
Well, yeah, at the end of the day is if I give you access to this, you will get access to data, and data now is the new oil of the new gold or whatever you want. I mean, data is power. Having access, so obviously the big companies would be reluctant to give you access to their data for free. So what are you going to do with that data? Well, no, I want to do well, and I want to make my patients better, and I want to improve outcomes. What else? What's going to
I need to commercialize it so that I can fund
and it's very difficult because it's as I said to you. I think I gave you the example. If I need to send you right now $100, I go to Zelle or whatever app and I send you $100 and you get it. If I need to submit my application for a mortgage and I need to download all my records in finance and everything, I download it, no one cares, I put it there and it goes. Now, if I go to my doctor and I was attended in hospital A in Montana and I moved to Florida and I want to share with my doctors here in Florida my clinical record from Montana, I cannot do that. So it's not the lack of capabilities from the technology perspective. It's a lot of willingness from the current regulations that are behind that. And we don't own our data. So when people say that if you're not paying for the product, it's because you are the product. And you know that. So if you're not paying for the product, it's because you are the product. And that is happening with clinical data or with interoperability. So I will love to, and come on, again, it's not a problem of technology. It's a problem of the legislations, the regulations, the corporations that they say, look, rightly, because they want also, I'm not saying that they're the devil, not at all. They just want to also protect their turf, and they want to, it has to be an incentive from each side, but we haven't found a way to break that barrier of incentives. That is the business model. It's every part is getting value and extracting value. So one thing is when you incorporate value, but also how you extract value. And I think that we haven't cracked the code there yet.
My secret solution for that, which is not, you would pick apart if I was in your classroom. But my solution is, if you could get data all volitionally, which there's a solution to that, and that I believe, on a blockchain-like, platform. So it's blockchain in the sense that I get fractional ownership of this piece of data. So the testing company, the clinic or the hospital, and the patient have some agreed upon ratio of that piece of data. And now you're basically getting these fractional, shares or rewards of any time this data is exchanged, because there's a way to track it. There's a reward that's given, and whether it's financially in the way of money, whether it's getting into a tier that makes your health insurance cheaper, some kind of system to where there's a fractional ownership that is shared amongst all of the people that contributed to that existence and creation of that data. So that's like my personal thing. Now, who's going to finance the blockchain? That's the problem. So the only thing I can think of is just like a casino table. There's a rake just like from the house of every pot. Like, so whatever's happening, there's just some fractional, almost, I don't want to call it socialized, but I don't know if it's for profit or if it's a federal or governmental thing, but take a rake, power what's happening, everyone wins.
It's a nice solution. Yes, and as a matter of fact, there are a couple of companies that are using that model, and they are struggling. Who is paying for this, right? Because patients are not going to be paying for that. Insurance company. So it is, again, the idea is good. Then when you get to the business model and the sustainability, these companies are. I will send you a case study that I did, and then you can read it and give me your opinion exactly about this. And I would love to hear your opinion about this.
So you had what I believe were 3 Ps when it comes to, and I mean the letter P, in innovation, education, program kind of faculty of thinking. And I think you've made it 4 Ps. I'd be very interested if, in our last few minutes, if you could share where those P's came from, why you picked P's and these words, and why they're fundamentally so important to what you believe as somebody that's spent career-long, time and understanding successful innovation, why those P's matter most.
That's a learning from my manager and from the innovations department that we always tell Cleveland Clinic caregivers that in order to do innovation, you need to use the 3 Ps. And I added thanks to someone in a podcast the other day. I was to Spencer. Fritz Spencer. He told me the 4 P. That is, you need to be passionate about what you're doing. That's kind of easy, right? Well, it's not that easy, but it's good to have passion about something. Then you need to be patient. That is more difficult. You need to be persistent. However, there is a point that, and that's where I added the 4 P, that is, you need to pivot at some moment. You don't need to breathe your own exhaust, and there is a moment that you will need to say, okay, done. Let's pivot. But don't go to the other extreme and pivot every 2 weeks. So those are the 4 P. You need to be passionate, persistent, you need to be patient, and you need to pivot whenever is the right time.
Well, Bernardo, this has been amazing. I really hope that people learned as much as I did, or even a fraction, because you make things sound so simple, yet so salient. So we appreciate you, and I just hope to have you back again.
Anytime, my friend. Hope to see you in person soon. And anything, if people want to connect me, you can give them my email, LinkedIn, or whatever. They can find me. We're in 21st century, so it's not difficult to reach out. So thank you so much for having me here again.